Welcome to All Ages Driving School. Today is going to be day 13 and we're going to be talking about adverse conditions. So let's get ready. Alright, so what is an adverse condition? An adverse condition is a condition that affects vision, traction, or both. As you can see here with a wet road, affects traction, fog affects vision, icy roads affects traction, and glare affects vision. And there's going to be times where it can affect both. You know, if you have heavy rain or heavy snowfall, you may have a hard time seeing and have a hard time driving in terms of traction. Visibility issues. Types of visibility issues while driving. You have passengers and or cargo. So have you ever sat in the front seat and the person sitting next to you is kind of leaning forward and you can't see oncoming traffic and you ask them to back up a little bit? That would be a passenger issue. Also, if you're moving and you stack up that back seat full of boxes and you can't see out your back window, that could be another visibility issue. So all these things kind of affect visibility. When you're driving, sometimes you get a film of dirt, water, or fog, or condensation on your windshield, making it difficult to see. Now, if it's on the outside, you can use your windshield wipers, but if it's on the inside, you're going to have to use your defogger on the inside of your car. Nighttime vision, lack of light. Driving, if you're out in a suburban or rural area where city light may be lacking and you may not have a moonlight that evening, and so seeing while driving at night can be very difficult. Glare, bright headlights coming towards you, or both on your windshield and through your mirrors, and then also sun glare. These are different types of glares that you have to deal with. So if you're driving east for work in the morning, you're always going to have the sun in your eyes. And when you drive west, to go home every evening, you're going to have the sun in your eyes. So if you want to kind of strategize it, you can get a job to where you drive west in the morning, to where the sun's always behind you, and east in the evening, and again, the sun will be behind you. All right, dusk and dawn driving. They say this is one of the most dangerous times to drive, simply because of the fact that your eyes can only focus on a certain type of, or only one major light source at a time. So if you have light in the sky, that'd be a major source of light, but yet everything on the ground is still in shadow, and you try to use your headlights to illuminate the road ahead, your eyes may have a hard time tracking to kind of see what light it should focus on. And a better example would be if you're ever sitting in your room at nighttime and your lights are on, you hear something outside, and you try to look out the window, but you can't see very well because the light's on inside the room. So you turn off the light. Now it's darker in your room than it is outside, allowing all the visible light outside to be visible, and now you can see everything on the outside. So it's kind of the same situation. You have light in the sky, it's competing for your vision, and as well as lights coming out your headlights to try to see the road that's in shadow, and therefore it can make it a dangerous situation. Headlight rules. Low beam headlights. All right, low beam headlights illuminates about 200 feet. Okay, daytime running lights helps other people see you better during the day. About 12 states throughout the United States have laws that require daytime running lights. That means you have to have your lights on no matter what time you drive. Here in Texas, they don't have that rule. But however, if you want to increase your ability to stay safe while driving with your headlights on during the day is a great way to help others see you better, and it reduces the odds of you getting into an auto accident. So if it can reduce your odds of getting into an auto accident, it's definitely something you want to do. It's like putting on a seatbelt. What are the odds that you're going to get into a crash? It's not very high, but at the same time, in case you do, you have your seatbelt there to protect you, right? So it's all about mitigation of risk. All right, rain. You want to use your low beam headlights during rain. It allows others to see you, and allows you to see through the rain so you can see the road up ahead. Because you don't want to use your brights in rain because you're going to have refraction back off the rain that's coming down, and it may actually impede your vision. Fog. You want to use either fog lights or your low beam headlights. By doing this, it allows the light goes down towards the road and not upwards. So if it's going down towards the road, it allows you to kind of see through the fog at an angle, to whereas if you were to have your brights on during fog, it would just basically be thrown back in your face. You now have glare on top of the fog, which makes it almost impossible to drive. So you don't want to use your high beam during fog. You want to use your low beam. So that's very important. Nighttime city driving in urban areas where city lights help illuminate the road. So, of course, in the city, you want to drive with your low beams on, right? You got plenty of lights, you got street lights, you got lights coming from buildings along the side of the road. There's a lot of traffic with other people's headlights on. So using your low beam headlights when you're in the city is just common sense, right? You don't want to use your high beams. It's unnecessary. You have plenty of light out there to help illuminate the road ahead of you. So using your low beam lights is definitely a must and not your high beams. All right, so what are the rules for high beams, right? So high beam lights illuminates the road about 350 to 400 feet ahead of you, right? Almost double that of low beam headlights. So the areas in which we use high beam headlights, of course, is usually exclusively in rural areas. And a rural area is basically outside the city, right? So you don't have street lamps. The road is not illuminated by them. You don't have very much buildings on the along the side of the road. You don't have much traffic. So basically, the only light that you have out there is natural light, right, coming from the stars and the moon. And that's definitely not going to be enough to illuminate the road. So you want to be able to, and of course with speeds being higher outside the city, like freeway and highway driving, you want to use your high beam headlights to get as much vision ahead as possible, but just know that you're limited to 400 feet. All right, oncoming blinding lights. All right, now this is usually happens in rural areas, but it can also happen in the city as well. Sometimes you have a big truck, their lights are a little bit higher off the ground, and they may kind of blind your rear view mirror, or they may kind of blind if they're for ahead of you in an intersection. So these are the rules on oncoming blinding lights. This is what we do. First thing you want to do is flash the high beams. You let them know that, hey, you're going to turn on and off and quickly, to communicate with the other driver that, hey, they have their headlight, they have their high beams on, they're kind of blinding you, so that way they're courteous enough to go ahead and throw it down into low beam until they pass you, right? But let's say they don't. So you want to go ahead and check the rear view mirror, look ahead towards the edge of the right of the pavement. So if you only have one side, let's say an oncoming vehicle coming at you with their high beams on, you can just kind of glance off to the side of the road, kind of look at that white line near the shoulder, and kind of make that your focal point going forward. So that way it's not completely blinding you, because if you were to continue to stare straight, that light would go right into your eyes and your eyes would adjust to the bright light, because once they pass you, it gets even more dangerous, because now your eyes haven't yet to adjust to the darkness, right? So then you have what they call night blindness, and how old you are is going to basically determine how long that's going to last. So, and you definitely want to reduce your speed. So if you see bright lights coming towards you, go ahead and reduce your speed, look off to the right. But if it's more than one, let's say you're blinded from both sides, then basically what you want to do is you want to close one eye and then go through it that way. So it says, if glare is on both sides, then close one eye until you pass the light, and then switch to allow the other eye to adjust to darkness again. If you fail to close one eye, you may be blinded for a short time, because it takes time to adjust your vision from a bright light to little to no light. The older you get, the longer it takes for your eyes to adjust, right? So it's kind of like if you've ever been playing basketball outside during the summer months, it's really bright, and you go into the house, all the shades and curtains are closed, and it's kind of darker, and it's really kind of hard to see. You're like, wow, it's kind of dark in here, even though your parents are like, no, it looks normal to me, right? Because your eyes have yet to adjust, right? So it's the same thing while driving. Of course, the older you get, the longer it takes for you to be able to adjust to that from that bright light to no light. All right, so headlight rules in Texas. Okay, so we're going to watch a quick little video here and see what kind of rules we got to deal with when it comes to headlights.
As a driver, our ability to see is mandatory. The only way we can safely get down the road is if we can see where we need to go and what we need to avoid. Now, imagine if you could not see other cars on the road, like at night. Could you avoid them? No way. So what keeps those collisions from happening? Lights. Believe it or not, on your screen right now there's a large truck, about 25 feet away. You can hear it, but where is it? There it is. I did this footage to prove the point that being seen by others is just as important as your ability to see. So the lights on your car play two roles. They help you see when visibility is poor, like at night, and they allow others to see you so they can respond to you. Using your headlights successfully can only be done if you know how they work. Your vehicle's headlights have two intensities. A high beam, which will be indicated on your dash as a blue symbol like this, and a low beam which will have no indication, like this. Your vehicle's light system has 3 levels. These levels are off, parking lights, and parking lights with your headlights and tail lights on. Never drive with just your parking lights on. The parking light level is used to help light up your car while you are parked in a poorly lit area where cars pass by. Leaving your parking lights on for more than 4 hours could leave you with a dead battery. Therefore, your car won't start. Always use your headlight level whenever your car is in motion. Here are some basic rules to follow when driving at night or visibility is poor, like during a heavy rain. Number 1, always use your low beams even in fog. I will say it again. Use your low beams in fog. 2, use your high beams on poorly lit roads like this one, or maybe down alleys and when there is very low traffic. Don't follow a car with your high beams on unless you want a beating. It is very annoying. 3, if a car is coming towards you with their high beams on, it will have an effect on you like someone shining a flashlight directly into your eyes. So, if this happens, look down and to the right. Use the white line on the right side of the road as a guide until the oncoming car passes by. Now, if you're driving with your high beams on, dim your lights when an approaching car is 500 feet away, or more like this. Creating this blinding effect really endangers both of you, not just the other driver. Rule 4. If your car is broken down, the best light system to use to warn other drivers is the hazard lights, which will have a symbol inside your car like this. Finally, there are laws that say when your lights should be on. The rule is your headlights should be on from 30 minutes after sunset to 30 minutes before sunrise. I have videoed what 30 minutes after sunset looks like, and you can clearly see that every driver has their headlights on sooner than 30 minutes after sunset. So turn your headlights on, at least so others can see you. Secondly, your headlights should be turned on when your vehicle cannot be seen by others for 1,000 feet. This situation would be like in a dust storm or heavy rain. Remember, safe driving is an issue of seeing and being seen.
All right, those are very good rules to abide by here in Texas. They're absolutely right when it comes to the law. 30 minutes before sunset, 30 minutes after sunset and 30 minutes before sunrise, your headlights must be turned on. So, all right, so very intense fog or extreme rain and snow. Okay, so further reduce your speed, but do not stop in the travel lane. So this is what you're going to do anytime you're in extreme fog or extreme rain and snow. So you need to know what to do. All right. Number 2, you want to activate the hazard lights. Even though you're driving, putting on your hazard lights lets everybody know that it's a dangerous situation, right? And you're trying to look for a safe space. All right. Safely move as far off the road as possible and stop your vehicle on a freeway. Look for an exit to leave the highway. Right? So anytime you're out there on a regular road, go ahead and pull off far to the right as possible, or move into a parking lot or a business or a place where you know you can stay safe and not be hit by another vehicle on the road because of the intense fog. If you are on the freeway, go ahead and look for an exit. Slowly look for an exit, and once you find that exit, again, try to find a place where you can safely leave your vehicle. All right? Do not return to the roadway until there is marked improvement in the visibility conditions, right? So if you're late for work, be late for work. You'd rather be late than dead. There's no reason for you to get behind the car. If you walk out of your house and it's very intense fog, there's no reason for you to actually get in your car and try to make it to work, okay? Because it's just dangerous for everybody out there. You want to preserve your life and the life of others, right? Your boss will understand that, hey, fog is pretty thick out there. It's hard for people to get to work, and they should be understanding in that regard, okay? So if they value you as an employee, they'll definitely understand. All right, driving in the rain. When you drive in the rain, you want to reduce speed. you want to lengthen the following distance that you have between you and the vehicle in front of you. And we talked about how to create space in front of you using seconds, right? 2 to 4 seconds is what you want to usually have, but in rain you want to bump that up to 6 or more seconds. You want to get that distance between you and the other vehicle. It allows you more time to stop, allows you more time to react, and of course, you know, in raining situations, the traction is going to be a lot different. You're going to need more time to stop than normally. So driving the tracks of other vehicles, this is very important, allows you to get better traction, right? So if they're pushing the water out of the way and you drive in their tracks, you're going to have more impact with the road, right, with your tire. So that's very important. Brake sooner and more gently. If skidding takes place, reapply gently, right? So you want to avoid any types of skids. And of course, hard brakes during wet roads is going to create those skids. So by having that more distance between you and the car in front of you, it allows you to brake sooner, more gently, and allows your car to have more grip with the road, so that way you don't skid all over the place and lose control of your vehicle. Same thing with acceleration. You want to accelerate more gradually. I don't know if you ever noticed, if you've ever been at a red light and the road's wet and you go ahead and hit the gas and all of a sudden you hear your tires screech because they're not getting good contact with the road. You got to do it gradually and gently, right? So it allows the wheels to have more of a grip with the road if you don't hit that gas too hard. Steer with the smooth and gentle motions. You definitely don't want to have any jerking motions. So if you turn quickly, if you turn that wheel hard during wet weather, you may lose control of your vehicle, and that's not what you want. So you want to have smooth, smooth motions with your controls. Anytime you're changing lanes, anytime you're doing any type of turn, you're doing it more gradual, more smoother. That way you have more contact with the road. You want to use windshield wipers, obviously. The blades need to be in good condition. You need to make sure your fluid reservoir is also full, right? Sometimes the rain could be very murky, right? Like it comes down and it actually has sand and pollution in it, and it makes it difficult to see through the windshield, and sometimes you need to get that residue off, so you go ahead and use your fluid reservoir to get that off, and your windshield wipers definitely need to be in good condition. You want to activate the defroster and wear rear window defogger to prevent fogging the windows, and you want to make sure that the tires have good tread and are properly inflated. Hydroplaning. So this is when we're talking about wet weather. Okay, so you're gonna have puddles of water out there, and when you're driving, so hydroplaning is a serious issue. So this little video right here is the do's and don'ts when it comes to hydroplaning.
If you've ever felt out of control of your vehicle driving in wet conditions or through a large puddle, chances are you've experienced hydroplaning. Hydroplaning is when water separates your tires from the ground underneath, causing you to lose traction with the road. Your vehicle speed, tire tread depth, and water depth can all act as contributing factors. As the speed of your tires increases in water, traction decreases. Worn tire tread decreases traction altogether and increases the likelihood of hydroplaning. And the deeper the water, the more quickly hydroplaning may arise. No matter how safe of a driver you may be, hydroplaning can still occur. Here are some do's and don'ts for managing these moments safely. Do remain calm and slow down. You'll likely be tempted to slam on your brakes. Instead, you should immediately ease off the gas pedal. Do use light pumping actions if you need to brake. If your car has anti-lock brakes, you may brake normally. Do take a moment to calm down when you've regained control of your car. Pull your car into a safe location and take a few deep breaths before continuing your trip. Don't try to correct your car by turning your steering wheel in the opposite direction you are sliding. Instead, gently turn your wheel toward the direction you are sliding. Don't neglect your tire maintenance. Replace worn tires and keep them properly inflated. Don't use cruise control while driving in rainy conditions or on wet roads. Be mindful of the possibility that hydroplaning may occur in wet conditions, and keep these tips in your back pocket.
All right, so windy conditions. Down here in living off the coast, you're definitely going to get that ocean breeze, and sometimes those conditions can definitely get gusty. So what do we do? So to maintain control, you should, one, anytime you're in a windy condition, reduce your speed. you want to grip the steering wheel firmly. And we're talking about with both hands. You can't just do it with one, you got to have two. Because anytime you have a major gust and it pushes that car, you got to be able to correct just as quickly. You got to counter steer. Okay, and you have to do that with two hands. All right. Check for oncoming and following traffic. You always want to be wary, because if you're in a windy condition, it is an adverse condition. So that means you got to have distance in front of you, distance behind you. Make sure you're not in people's blind spot, because these are situations where you can actually get into some trouble when that wind does gust really, really hard. So you got to be careful. Number 4, compensate gently for the wind gust as soon as the vehicle moves off course, and even slightly. Be prepared to counter steer. All right, you want to avoid passing. All right, so get there safely. It's not about getting there more quickly. You want to get there safely. So you want to avoid passing if it's not necessary. 7, increase your following distance, obviously. 8, keep away from other vehicles on either side, right, on a multi-lane road. So if you're on a 3-lane freeway going towards Galveston, yeah, you definitely want to avoid having people in your blind spot, right? So, and you don't want to be in anyone else's blind spot. So go ahead and adjust your speed, get out of their blind spots, create space around you, so that way you're safer. Number 9, position your vehicle close to the right in your lane on roads with one lane in each direction. And what that means is that if you're on a 2-lane road and they're going in opposing directions, you want to be closer towards your shoulder than you are to the opposing lane, because if that wind gusts and blows your car and it causes you to drift a little bit into the opposite lane, you may find yourself in a head-on collision, and that's not something you want. So you want to be very careful. You want to go ahead and move close to your shoulder to the right on a 2-lane opposing side traffic. So you got to be very careful. All right, extreme heat. All right, down here in Texas, it does get pretty hot. Nothing like the desert, though. The desert gets really intense, right? So if you ever do any long distance traveling and you actually have to drive through the desert, like Death Valley or the Mojave Desert out in west of the United States, or even in West Texas, where we do have some desert conditions, you got to be very careful. Okay, so what you want to do anytime you drive in extreme heat in desert-like conditions, you want to top off your fluids. Make sure your radiator fluid in reserve is at optimal levels. You want to avoid any type of tire blowouts by making sure you inflate your tires to summertime levels, which is usually less air, because air expands when hot. So if you're and we talk about this in car maintenance, but if you want to see how much air you should put in your tires, if you open up that car door, right there on the seam of that car door frame, you'll see a sticker that says tire inflation levels for winter and for summer. Now, of course, summertime, when it gets warmer, air tends to expand, right, creating more pressure in the tire. During the winter months, when it gets colder, the air molecules get closer together, creating less pressure. Right? So that means you got to put more air in the winter than you do in the summer. So you got to put less air in the summer. So you want to make sure that you're at the proper optimal levels for summertime driving. You do not want to have too much inflated air in there to where when it does get really hot and when the pavement is above 160 degrees because it's baking in the sun all day, and then that translates into your tires, and all of a sudden you have a blowout, right? That's where most blowouts come from, is just basically the tires getting too hot. And when it gets too hot, the air expands on the inside, and then boom, the tire explodes, and now you deal with that situation, right? So you want to avoid those. You want to make sure that your tire is inflated to the proper inflation level for summertime driving. So a little bit less air than usual than you would during the winter months. You want to wear good sunglasses that block glare and wind, right? So if you're driving a motorcycle, blocking wind is obvious with sunglasses. But if you're in the car, glare is a major issue, especially during the summer months. If you're driving in the evenings or in the mornings where that sun is just right off the horizon, and it may be right in your field of vision. So wearing a good pair of sunglasses can help you navigate those roads when that sun is right in your eyes. You also want to avoid driving at the hottest times of the day, usually between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. For most areas. Right? So you want to go ahead and drive at times early in the morning, later in the evening, when things are cooler and the roads are definitely starting to get a chance to cool off. So that way you're not driving extreme heat. You're not putting a lot of pressure on your radiator. You're not putting a lot of pressure on your tires, and you're able to go out there and you'll be able to take care of business in normal driving conditions. Number 5, try to drive at cooler times of the day. Of course, at nighttime, when it's definitely when the sun's not in the sky, it's a lot cooler. So that's how we approach extreme heat. Okay. Winter conditions. All right. What is a winter condition? Anytime the temperature is below freezing, right? 32 degrees is Fahrenheit is the freezing point here in the United States, I use Celsius, and other places around the world, which is 0 degrees Celsius. But 32 degrees Fahrenheit is considered freezing, and that's when it would be a wintry condition. All right, so icy roads, heavy snowfall, blizzards, that's what we would consider winter driving, winter condition drivings. All right, so winter driving. All right, here's a quick little video on proper winter driving and maneuvering. I know it's not really a big issue down here in Houston, but if you ever plan on moving up north, you're definitely going to have to know how to drive in the snow and drive in ice, because that is going to be the norm for 4 months out of the year during the winter months. So be prepared for that.
There's one thing that can help you when you're driving on slippery ice and snow more than anything else, and that's knowledge, knowing what to do to stay in control. For that potentially life-saving knowledge, we went to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, to the renowned Bridgestone Winter Driving School.
We've poured about 40,000 gallons of water on every track, allowed them to freeze. So we push snow on top of them every morning, and typically it gets snowed on a lot out here, but unfortunately you are driving on solid ice.
And driving on solid ice is just about as treacherous as you can get. Here, drivers learn how to deal with those situations that can get you in serious trouble. Turns can be especially difficult, and when you're turning a corner, you may have to deal with something called oversteer. It's when your car is steering too much.
So if you turn in and suddenly the car goes out of control, don't forget where you're looking. Steer to get there. Maybe even have to add some throttle to put some additional grip on the rear tires of the car to regain control after an oversteer.
On the other hand, if your car tries to go straight when you turn, that's called understeer.
So if we happen to be driving along, come into an icy corner, and steer with the steering wheel too much, we might find that we have to reduce the amount of steering. Suddenly, the front tires can regain grip and carry us where we'd like to go.
Regaining that grip between the surface and your tires is key in maintaining control.
You might think that the colder it gets, the more slippery it is. Well, it's not exactly true. When the temperature's at 32 degrees, it's very slippery because the water is still wet. The closer to 0 it gets, the more grippy the road becomes and the more traction you have.
Bringing your car to a controlled stop is also vital. Many newer cars have anti-lock brakes, and you should know if yours has them.
The way to use ABS, anti-lock brakes, is just to stand on the pedal with a lot of pressure, and that lets the system know you want maximum braking from all the tires, and it can be working on all the tires. Alternatively, if you don't have ABS or the ABS malfunctions, you might have to pump the brakes. And we call it cadence braking, where we're pumping the brake up to the point of lockup and then releasing it suddenly.
Nearly all vehicles come with all-season tires, okay in snow, but they don't provide the grip winter tires do. Winter tires are made with a different rubber compound that grips better in cold weather and an optimized tread width. I tried an SUV with all-season tires and found it skidded more and didn't stop as surely.
Takes a while, doesn't it? Oh, and you can see how sideways the car is on these tires. Yeah.
But in an SUV with winter tires, the improvement was noticeable. Now, you may never drive in conditions quite as harsh as these, but it's always good to know there are things you can do to help you be as in control as possible. In Steamboat Springs, Colorado, for AutoNet TV, I'm Scott Newell.
All right, so let's talk about traction. Okay, what is traction in driving? Traction is defined as the grip our tires have on the road. Your tires are the only thing that is in contact with the road, meaning your tire condition is everything when it comes to traction safety. How you inflate your tires, how much tread is on your tires, and the condition of the tire itself is going to determine the amount of safety you're going to have when out there on that road. So anytime you get into a vehicle, you want to make sure your tires are in good condition. And there's tons of ways when we talk about vehicle maintenance, there's tons of ways to check on the health of your tire. And so if you need extra help on that, go back to that portion of our course that talks about how to check on your tire and the health of your tire. That way you could have a better understanding of what you need to do when you're out there getting ready to drive in conditions such as wintry conditions. All right, so road friction factors. All right, so friction is basically how much the grip of our tire can grab on to that road to help us slow down. So Here they have friction ratings, okay, for smooth drive asphalt. Now, of course, the lower the number, the less friction you have. That means the longer it takes for you to stop, okay? So the higher the number, the best grip you have on the road, and therefore the easier it is to stop, okay? So smooth drive asphalt, usually you'll find that on freeways. You're looking at a 0.9, right? That's pretty good. Average drive pavement, which you find on city streets, 0.7, not too bad. Wet asphalt-based concrete, on, again, freeways, you're looking at 0.6. Dry or wet gravel, okay, you may find that in a little bit more rural areas or even small towns, or maybe even some suburban roads. They'll use gravel portion for their road, and you're looking at a 0.5. Okay, wet concrete, wet and oily gravel, looking at 0.4. Damp pavement, melted ice, 0.35. Muddy and frozen asphalt, 0.2. And then, of course, ice is the least amount of traction you're going to get at 0.05. So it's going to be very difficult to stop, right? So when looking at your braking charts, it kind of correlates to that. So you want to make sure that you have enough space between you and the car in front of you when you're stopping, or how much time you're going to use to stop at an intersection. Anytime you're in these type of conditions, you definitely want to compensate for that and brake sooner. Okay, so that way you have a better chance of stopping on time and correctly. All right, so potholes. Potholes is a hazard out there on the road. It's an adverse condition, something that we can't control, right? So how do we deal with potholes, right? So obviously you want to use your SIPDE. We want to scan ahead to see possible potholes that may be in our path, right? A good 100, 200, 1,000 feet ahead. If we can identify it, the sooner the better. We want to identify the size of the pothole, just so that way we can decide how we're going to deal with it. All right, so taking the size into consideration, you have several options. One, if it's a small to medium one, you can slow down and straddle the pothole. So what does straddle mean? Straddle means basically that as you approach the pothole, you're going to take your vehicle and you're going to have that pothole go in between your two front tires, so it goes directly down the middle underneath your car, and your tire is not going into the pothole. So basically, all four of your tires avoid it by simply straddling it. That means you're going directly over it, down the middle of your car, and not with your tires. Okay, now if it's a large pothole, obviously you want to slow down, you want to check your mirrors, your blind spot, put on your blinker, change lanes if possible, and then basically go around the pothole. And if you have to go around it on a two-way street, on a two-way street, you want to go around to the right if possible. And if you do have to go to the left, you still have to respect the right-of-way to oncoming traffic, and then go around it that way. So you definitely want to make sure that you don't put your tires into the pothole. It's going to ruin your vehicle. It's going to ruin your suspension, your struts, your ball and socket bearings inside where the tire meets the axle. So you definitely want to make sure that you don't go into those potholes with your tires, because eventually it's going to cost you a lot of money. All right, so you want to make sure that you keep your car in good condition, and that means not going into potholes when driving. So, and of course, the faster you go over that pothole and your tire goes into it, the more damage it's going to create. All right. So how to get out of a skid. All right, so this right here talks about how to get out of skid. The first thing you want to do, and of course the skid is when basically the back end of your tires or the back end of your car starts either drifting to the right or drifting to the left. As you can see here in this diagram, it's drifting to the right. So the first thing you want to do when your car starts to skid is you want to take that foot off the gas. Right, so you want to lower that inertia, you want to take the foot off the gas, and basically you want to start turning the wheel in the direction of the skid. Now that may be kind of confusing, so what I usually tell my students is you want to turn the direction you are trying to drive. So if I'm driving out there and the back end of my car starts whipping out towards the right and the front end of my car is going to the left, and then all of a sudden the road I want to go down is now more towards my right, I'm going to go ahead and turn that wheel towards the road I'm trying to drive down, so that way I can go ahead and correct it. Okay, so if your back end is turning to the right, you're going to turn your wheel to the right. If the back end is turning towards the left, you're going to turn your wheel towards the left, and you want to aim towards the road you're trying to drive down, so that way you can get out of the skid safely. And you must take your foot off the gas. You don't want to brake hard. You just simply take your foot off the gas and get out of the skid that way, and then continue. And then, of course, now knowing that the road is in skid-like conditions, go ahead and adjust your driving so you can avoid those skids. All right, so what is your assignment for today? All right, so assignment for day 13, you're going to read chapter 20 and 21. All right, You're going to watch 2 videos from our adverse condition list on our YouTube channel. So if you go to our website, allagesdrivingschool.com, and you go to resources, you'll find our YouTube channel. You click on our YouTube channel, you'll see I'll have playlists for every single day that you can think of. So one of the playlists is called Adverse Conditions. Go ahead and watch 2 videos from the Adverse Condition list. And then I want you to do exercise A from the workbook. And again, you should know by now where our workbook is at, but if you don't, you go to our website, allagesdrivingschool.com, you click on resources, and then down at the bottom of the page, you can download our PDF workbook, and you are going to do exercise A for both chapter 20 and 21, and you're going to do those questions, turn them in, email them to me, and of course, mrjamesdriversed@gmail.com, and I'll grade them and give you credit for day 13, and yeah, so stay well, and see you tomorrow.